Hey,
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Okay, if you click this video, you're probably wondering if you are on the right path. Because you want your person and you don't know if you are going in the right direction. Because you might think your person is back there in the past. So you just want to know, are you on the right path? So before we talk about it.
Yes, we're Terrence and Jill, God-Ordained Union, and we've been together right under 3 years. So we are excited. We got an anniversary coming up next month. So I'm looking so forward to being able to share that with my lady.
Yes.
Yes. You guys are on the right track. Okay. You're at the right place at the right time. Our goal here, our mission here is simply to help increase kingdom marriages.
Yep. So if you're feeling like, where's my person? Why hasn't he come? He or she, if you're a male. And what are you doing wrong? This is the channel. We've been there. We know what you're feeling. I was 52 when I walked down the aisle, 48 when I came across Terrence on a dating app. And but there were some things blocking me. So on this channel, we help you expose the enemy and to help you see where there could be some blocks. A lot of the blocks is that you might not even believe your self-worth or your beauty, and you're hiding. It could be a number of things. And so we've been there. We know what you're feeling. We haven't experienced it all, but we've experienced enough where we can help give you some insight. Of course, everything is biblically based. We ain't perfect. God's grace is sufficient, though.
Yeah, we're not here to give you any type of relationship advice. We just want to share our experiences as we were in God's elevation room, just as you are right now.
Yeah.
And to try to help you understand you're not by yourself.
Yeah. So we call your single season the elevation room, because there's so much elevation that happens in the single season. And so yeah. We go live every Tuesday.
Yes, evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We release videos every Sunday night at 8 p.m. and every Thursday night at 8 p.m. And we usually are doing live chats. So the video is not live chat, but like this video, you'll see on a Sunday. So
look, we're excited. We have an awesome topic for you today, just to help you with what she was just talking about. We're going to be talking today about one of our favorite words, which is God's providence.
Yes.
God's providence. Look, God's providence, simply put, is his intervention in your life regarding his purpose for you.
And how he orders your steps.
Yeah, so if you're thinking that he hadn't been hearing you, if you're thinking that he's forgotten about you, look, I'm here to tell you, we're here to tell you, he's answering your prayer right now. How did you think you found our channel?
Yes.
How do you think you listened to this particular video? God ordered this and put it right in your path where you would see it. So he's already answering your prayer.
Yes.
So don't ever think that he's forgotten about you, that you aren't worthy, that you don't qualify. No, God's got you right where you need to be right now.
Right, exactly. As we've said many times in the Bible, in the Word of God, there's nothing new. God laid it out for us so that we can go back and see what he did to his loved ones in the past. And so when it comes to ordering your steps and understanding if you're on the right path, especially when it comes to finding your soulmate, the two books of the Bible that you want to reference is the book of Esther and the book of Ruth. The book of Esther is the only book in the Bible that does not mention the word God. But what it does is it shows God's providence. It shows how God led Esther to marry the king so that they can free the people.
She would be in position.
Yes, to help her people. And so, of course, we know in the book of Ruth, God ordered Ruth's steps so that she could, get to her Boaz. And so we know that Ruth and Boaz were the ancestors of Jesus. And even ordering your steps, when Ruth and Naomi, her mother-in-law, when they left, her former mother-in-law, so they continued their relationship, which is a whole message in itself. But when Ruth and Naomi left Moab to go back to, where were they going? Israel? They were going back to Bethlehem, I think. Bethlehem. When they were going back after the famine was over, the Bible referenced that trip, if it was that trip actually took 2 years. It was a 2-year journey. So their path was a path, and how God was ordered, and how she ended up meeting her Boaz. But there's always a process and a path. And so
think about them walking for 2 years, not knowing was at the end of that walk other than their destination. But God was with them the whole time, ordering their steps.
Yes.
So we have to, as you're going through what you're going through, everybody's journey is different. So don't get caught up in thinking that somebody's journey was shorter than yours, or they got to their destination faster than you're getting to yours, or your destination isn't what theirs is like. Don't get into comparison. Just stay focused on what God is doing for you
in your journey,
and where he's taking you on your journey. Stay in the moment with your journey.
Yes. So I think we shared this story maybe one time on a video, one time. But even me telling the story is even mind blowing. It talks about how God's providence was operating in our lives. So I'm going to try to tell the story as quickly as possible, but it is a journey. So back in 1995, I was 25 years old. I had just had my first heartbreak, 25 years old. And I was at a crossroads in my life. I was 25, trying to figure my life out. I was working at a law firm. I did not know, in an admin position, I did not really know what I wanted to do. I was an administrative assistant for some attorneys. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't really fulfilled on that job, but I was young and heartbroken. And so that same year, my grandmother dropped dead, like literally dropped dead at 66 years old. So it was some bumpy roads, some emotional turmoil there, mental turmoil, didn't know what I wanted to do. And my mother was having a conversation with a family friend. This friend had went to our church. 2 years prior, that family friend and her husband relocated to a place called Charlotte, North Carolina. So my mother was on the phone with this family friend. It was like summer of 1995. Summer of 1995, my mother was on the phone, and the friend was telling her how, her and her husband, loved living in this place called Charlotte, North Carolina. And that, so my mother was telling her, Jill is like really thinking about relocating somewhere. My thought was that I was going to go back to New York, move to New York to be with my grandfather. Now, let me just say, at this time I was in Maryland, my hometown where I grew up in Maryland. My thought was that I was going to go stay with my grandfather because my grandmother had passed away. I was going to go and just restart my life in New York, because just about all of the adult grandchildren went back to New York at some point. I was the only one who hadn't. So I was like, well, maybe I'll go back to my birthplace and just, figure out what New York has to offer as an adult. And so the family friend told my mother she should try Charlotte. She was like, she would probably really like Charlotte. And she says, matter of fact, if she comes to Charlotte, she can stay with my husband and I until she, see if she likes it or whatever. So I thought about it, and she was pressing me to come. She even went as far as, like, she kept calling, and she said, tell Jill to send me her resume. Sent her my resume, and her neighbor actually was working for, at the time, it was a contractor. It was a contractor that had the contract for the Mecklenburg County school system for their computer contract, their technology contract. And it was a small office, and they were looking for an office manager. So I sent my resume. They interviewed me over the phone, and they were like, oh, we really want her. Like, she has the skills. I was coming from, DC, I had some skills. And so I came down to Charlotte, and it was my first time. I didn't know anything about Charlotte. It was my first time. And I liked it. And I was like, wow. And as soon as I came to Charlotte, it was like my mindset, like life just came. It was just like beautiful. And I was like, oh, this is a beautiful, it's like all new apartments. It was like apartments being built everywhere. And so that was like in June, July, I was hired at the job. And so things were going well. And I had found my apartment. I was still living with the family friend, still staying with the family friend. I had found my apartment and I was to move in my apartment in September. And so we went to work one day, and because the neighbor, it was like maybe 10 of us in the office that worked in this small office in this location, in the Charlotte location. My neighbor and I went to work, and when we got there, all of the electronics were gone. The fax machine, anything that can plug up was gone. And so it was a major theft. It was a hit. And so the headquarters was in Atlanta, and the headquarters, they said that they said, we're going to have to close that office. You all can come to Atlanta, and if you want to come to Atlanta, you're more than welcome. And I was like, no, I don't want to go to Atlanta. I like this new place, Charlotte. Like, I've been here for 2 months or 3 months, and I like this place. And plus, Atlanta was even further. This is before any of my siblings this is before any family had lived in Atlanta. And I was like, no, I don't even know where Atlanta is. Like, I just know it's farther than Charlotte. And so I kept trying to find a job. And I had told the person I was staying with, that I was going to be out of, by that September, because my apartment, and I could not find a job. And so I canceled the apartment, and the couple, were just so God sent. They were like, no, you're going to find a job. We don't want you to go back. And so I went home November for Thanksgiving, went back to Maryland, and then I came back to Charlotte, and I still could not find a job. And so I had bought all of this stuff from my apartment. It was just it. So by December, I had to make a decision. I said, I'm going to have to go back to Maryland. I have to go back to Maryland. And when I tell y'all, I never forget that trip. It was December. Now this is mind blowing. It was December 12th. I made this decision. I drove back home. My parents came down to get me because I had so much stuff. We had 2 cars, and they packed up everything. And when I say I felt like I had left my soul in Charlotte, I felt like I left my soul. I wasn't in Charlotte long, 6 months, but I felt like that's where I was supposed to be. And I went back to Maryland, and I felt in a deep depression. And so for weeks, I didn't get out the bed. I would get up just enough to shower, and I got back in the bed. To my advantage, that January, we got hit with a huge snowstorm, blizzard of 96, which also, helped me to stay in the bed, because the city was shut down for well over 2 weeks. And so I would just fell into depression. And so I had to get up. I was like, I feel like I'm defeated, and that something was left in Charlotte. I said, but I got to get up. And so I said, I'm going to figure this out. So I met this guy. I ended up meeting this guy, and he was like, you know what? You should go back to school. You should go back to college. I had started, but I had gotten a quote unquote good job. And so I was like, he was like, I think you should go back to school. So he helped me get into Bowie State University. I got into Bowie. I just started like doing things for me. And I ended up getting my bachelor's degree. Then I went on and got my master's degree in nonprofit management, leadership. Then I went on and got a good government job. Then I went on and got a real estate license. Then I went on to, buy my dream car. I went on to buy my home. I went on to, then I left the federal government and stepped out on faith and started my business, my nonprofit business. That by then that was like 2011. And so I was really like doing things for myself. Now, and I had, a relationship here or there, but I was like really like doing Jill. I was really doing Jill. And so every time I thought about North Carolina, because at that time, two of my sisters had, well, three, because Nene had come to college in Charlotte. One of my sisters had went to Raleigh to finish school, Meredith. Then Tammy had came down here briefly to Raleigh and, to figure out if she liked North Carolina. And every time I would think about North Carolina, I would cringe. I would just cringe, like, ugh. I was like, it was residue of trauma because it was traumatic for me leaving North Carolina, leaving Charlotte. So in 2013, 14, I got a phone call and it was from a former classmate in grad school. And I got a phone call and she said that, she said, "Hi, Jill, I know you're surprised to hear from me." She said, "But I am considering taking a position as the executive director of a $20 million nonprofit." And she said, "But there's a lot of issues revolving around this nonprofit. They're going through some mismanagement of funds. They're going through a lot of public scrutiny. They've mismanaged some grants." And she said, and I told them the only way I will accept a position that I had to bring a consultant, a PR, a nonprofit consultant to come in with me. And she said, "I knew that the person who could help turn this nonprofit around is you." And so let me just tell you briefly, that person that called me, it took a lot of pride for her to do it because she and I had a disagreement and it was ugly years prior, about 5 years prior. And it was ugly. And I felt like she had, quote unquote, did me wrong. And so I was in my mind, I was like, the nerve of her. Like, I was like, okay, this woman is really trying to use me. Like the nerve of her, like she need me now. Now she needs me. And so she said, you would have to meet, if you want to consider the consultant position, you will have to meet with the board. You will have to submit a proposal. And so I was like, that's odd. And so I prayed about it and I thought about it. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead. And now the nonprofit, let me say again, I don't know if I said this, the nonprofit, it was in North Carolina. So that had already been like a red flag. But because I was so passionate about the work that I did, I wanted to really consider it because it could really be beneficial for my business. So I thought about it and I said, okay. So I called her back a couple of days later. I said, I'll, put the proposal in. Put the proposal in. She called me. She said, they absolutely love you. They want to meet you. Expenses paid. Just, come down to North Carolina, da, da, da. So I came down to North Carolina and I met with the board unanimously, 27-member board, unanimously said, yes, we want her. And so, so I was, for months, I was going back and forth, doing the work. But, when I had to, come down to have meetings, because I was working from Maryland, I would, come down and I would have meetings. I would stay with my sister. And one day, something said, why do you have to, actually it was my mother. She said, why do you have to go back? She said, why don't you lease a apartment down here, instead of, staying with my sister, because my sister was about to go back home. She said, why don't you lease an apartment in North Carolina? And then of course it could be a business write-off or whatever. She said, and I was like, oh, that's a great idea. I can just lease a little 1-bedroom apartment instead of, hotel expenses or whatever. And so as I was considering that, I went back home to Maryland. As I was considering that, something said, why do you have to even come back to Maryland? It feels good down there, because I was in my, groove of working. Even though I was in Raleigh, I was like, okay, well, North Carolina, I've, gotten over the trauma. North Carolina, every time I go, it's a really nice vibe. I said, and some said, why do you have to even stay in Maryland? Why don't you just lease your condo and just stay in North Carolina? And so that's what I did. That's what I did. And so I came back to North Carolina permanently in 2014. And I leased out my condo. And yeah. And so the rest is history, because I ended up being in Raleigh and ended up meeting Terrence. And I say that to say that was like God had ordered my steps and how his providence had ordered. But let me tell you how the enemy operates. And this is what we say all the time. You got to know your blocks. You got to know how the enemy works, because there were several things that could have hindered me, that could have blocked me from not coming back to North Carolina. One is forgiveness. Had I not forgiven that woman, I would have said, how dare you? Because that's what I was feeling. And that's what I was saying initially. I don't want to hear from you. I could have blocked it, not forgiven her. The other thing is, that block could have been my condo. Well, I have my home here. I bought my home here. I have a home here. I'm not going back. Another block could have been the trauma. I don't ever want anything else to do with North Carolina. I'm not. Another block could be, I don't want to relocate. And so this is, even though we're on the right path, even though God is ordering our steps, we're on the right path. The enemy, it does not stop the enemy from throwing in his little blocks. And so yeah, that was the past. So when we say, I met at 48, it actually, this journey actually started in 1995. It was 25 years later. And let me tell you, I left North Carolina I left Charlotte in 1995 on December 12th, 1995. 25 years later, on December 12th, unbeknownst to both of us, Terrence proposed marriage. And so God is ordering your steps. You could go once you find your soulmate, it could be years back that you could see how God was ordering this to happen.
Not to cut you off there.
No.
One of the things we talk about is a lot of these topics we bring up, we experienced while we were waiting, while we were in our elevation season. But we didn't know all the stuff that we're sharing now as we went through it.
Right.
It's she and I eating at dinner and we're talking about our past or the things we went through. When we're going on walks, we're having conversations, and these topics are coming up. We're like, oh my God, this was good. This is what I was doing. Oh, this is where I was. So our point is this. You got to be in the moment every single day. And you got to start. We keep saying, have a relationship with God. Have a relationship with God. God wants a relationship with you. Get to the point to where you know how he speaks to you. Yes. You know when you are having some type of doubt and you say, Lord, I need a sign. Know how he gives you signs, because he does all of us different according to our needs and where our relationship is with him. Yeah. So you have to start understanding those things. So as you're going on your journey, and the enemy, like she said, is going to come up and try to derail you and take you off the path, you can start understanding, you know what? God has got me. And I need to stay disciplined. I need to stay attentive. I need to understand that he is ordering my steps. And don't always have a memory. Stop forgetting what he did for you yesterday. Because sometimes when you get at your worst moments and the enemy come at you the hardest he's ever came, you have to remember what God has done for you in the past to help give you strength to endure through what you're going through at that particular moment.
And let me tell you, in between signs, because sometimes he doesn't always give you signs, some things is just faith. Most things is faith. Yes. It's impossible to please God without faith. I just did faith moves. I came to North Carolina on a faith move. And let me tell you, not long after I got the contract, got the consulting gig. The girl crossed me again, and I ended up losing the contract. And so it was a faith move, and it was almost to the point where I had to go back to Maryland because I had, the contract had expired. And so, but it was a faith move. I remember even leaving Maryland. I got in my car, I packed up my little BMW, everything that I could pack up in that car, I packed up, and the whole way, as a matter of fact, I got the apartment online. I didn't even know how the apartment looked. I got the apartment online, and I made a faith move. I packed up my condo. My best friend at the time and my sister, they was like, don't worry about this. We're going to pack up the rest. You need to make this faith move because God is saying you need to I came down 85 by myself in my little car, and I cried the whole way. And it wasn't tears of joy. It was tears of something just happened in the spirit realm. And it was a faith move. I didn't know what I was getting into. I couldn't see past tomorrow. I just made a faith move. And I did it, and I got to the apartment, and I didn't have any furniture. I was going to buy stuff when I got here. And that night, my bed wasn't going to be delivered, and I walked into that beautiful apartment, absolutely stunning apartment in Cary, North Carolina. I got into that apartment. I had brought a couple of comforters with me and a pillow, and I laid on that living room floor, and I slept like a baby. All night on the floor, nothing. I slept like a baby. And so some things you're not going to get assigned, but you've got to trust God. The Bible says no good thing will he withhold from you if you walk upright before me. If you are in alignment, just walk. You're on the right path. Just stop trying to figure out how it's going to be. I had no idea I was going to meet my husband. I had no idea. I was praying. As a matter of fact, that was one of the reasons why I had decided, as it was the first time, decided to leave Maryland because I had just had a breakup, and I had decided, I was like, ain't nothing hold me back. Let me just go. And so you just got to know that God got you. Lord, I'm walking up right before you. I don't know where you lead me to. I don't know why you lead me here. I don't know why you lead me to relocate, but I'm going to follow your path. I'm just going to go by faith. I might not receive signs.
Look here, baby. Not to interrupt you again. I've been getting real good at interrupting.
No.
But think about this, y'all. God puts people in your life for one or two reasons: for a season or a lifetime. And the one person that she had an issue with, he put back in her life for a season.
For a season.
And although the woman did something against her again, God still used that time frame to rekindle her love for the state.
Yep. He would use anybody.
So
he would use
you
anybody.
have to be so attentive. And again, we didn't know all of this while we were going through it. Okay, so we're not trying to say we got all the answers. But what we are saying is, if we think about what God is doing, and if we can start to focus on him so much more, we will be a little bit more aware that God has got us.
He's got us.
In times where we don't think he even know who we are.
He got you. Sometimes you got to walk with your eyes closed. You don't know how he's doing it. Sometimes you'll get an invitation. Hey girl, go with me to this birthday party. It's one of my coworkers. I don't feel like going to no birthday party. You don't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't. Get up and get dressed and go. Enjoy yourself.
It didn't cost you anything.
You don't know
your time.
You know how many love stories are out there saying, I wasn't going to go. I wasn't going to go, but something said go. I wasn't going to go to this New Year's celebration, but something said go. I wasn't going to go and visit this church with my girlfriend, but something said go. God is ordering your steps. He's ordering your steps. Yes.
You don't know where he's taking you.
Right. And you just got to have faith and just believe that.
And she said faith moves multiple times. Faith moves.
And then, but the enemy threw stuff in there as well. So you got to know the tricks and schemes of the enemy, because he will keep his whole plan is to block you from your person. So
yes.
Okay. So providence Providence. God's providence.
All around us every single day.
He's ordering your steps. And even after Terrence and I got, right before, when I was in the season when Terrence was not aware of me, I was aware of him. God's providence, even how he was just, and let me tell you something real funny. My cousin lived here in Charlotte. I was living in Raleigh, and she was having an event, and she was like, Jill, can you, help me with the event? So I was like, yeah, I'll drive down from Raleigh, came down to Charlotte. Again, this is the period, that first phase when Terrence wasn't aware of me. So I'm coming down, and she telling me, she gave me the addresses and the GPS. I'm writing down. I am thinking like, wow, this is where that guy lives. This is where that guy, his profile said this is where he lived. Then I passed over where he said his city was. I was like, oh my God. Then y'all, why did I pass an exit that said Providence? The exit said Providence. I started crying. I was like, Lord.
Look, and that's a beautiful area too.
We
still drive up and down that road from time to time because of how beautiful that whole entire area is in Providence.
Providence Road, yes. And so I was like, Lord, I know you speaking to me. That's one of the many signs. I was like, I know you speaking to me. Because I had just studied Providence. So let me tell y'all, a really good study on the word Providence is Pastor Tony Evans has a series on Providence. So you may want to check it out. Pastor Tony Evans. He has an app. I don't know if it's still, because his app, I think only has right now only sermons from 2025. But if you put it in YouTube, it should be able to come up. He teaches on the word providence. And so yeah, a lot of people think it's serendipity or fate, but God's word is called providence. It's how he orders and orchestrates your steps. I should have worn my Providence baseball cap for this recording. But all right, so know that you're on the right path.
Yes.
God is ordering your steps.
Yes.
And so you might be thinking you off track, or you not, as long as you're walking up right before God.
Just the fact he got you on this video.
Just on this video.
That he has you covered.
Yes, yep. All right, y'all, drop some comments and all that. Just know that you're on the right path. And so God's got you.
Yes,
all right.
We look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.
Yes. All right. Deuces.